Okay, good morning, everybody. We are started. And I really do mean everybody. There's a lot of people on this call, and I'm really excited to have you here, and you're from everywhere. So that's really cool. I love the greenness of being able to speak to so many people in so many different countries, and I didn't have to get on a plane, and neither did you. So I'm really excited to have you here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Eric Edmeades, and I am a serial entrepreneur and a business consultant. And one of my real passions in life is helping entrepreneurs transition from what I often think of as almost like slave-like conditions as a business owner into what we call business freedom. And so this webinar is really an introduction to business freedom and some of the key principles that we teach around business freedom, which is a series of methodologies designed to help people create a much higher degree of liberty, financial freedom, and time freedom while being a business owner. And so today we're going to cover some really cool stuff. From a backgrounds perspective, I'm a big fan of, I've learned a great deal of business from people like Michael Gerber, Stephen Covey, Chet Holmes, Tony Robbins, and many others. And I'm really here to share with you a combination of lots of great information that I've kind of collected over the years, and frankly, a great deal from my own personal experience. I've owned a number of businesses in a variety of different industries. I've been involved with data capture, mobile computing, field service, Hollywood special effects, military simulation, events management. I've had a breadth of business experience in my own businesses, and then obviously even more with clients of mine that I've dealt with. And I've also owned businesses in a variety of different countries, which gives me maybe an interesting perspective on the different cultures and different requirements and different realities of doing business in a variety of locations. Before we really get into business freedom itself, what I want to talk a little bit about is this webinar. So we're kind of new at using these. It's a lot of fun. We're using a company called Webinar Jam, and it has the capability of allowing you to post questions in the comment tracker on the side. And the thing is that the broadcast is delayed by about 30 to 45 seconds. So when I ask you to post a question, we won't see it for almost a minute. So it's actually a whole lot easier if, as I'm going along, and something pops into your head, something you want to share or a question you want to ask, that you just go ahead and pop it right in there. And that way, we're not waiting for questions to come up as they do. And the other thing is that if you're not able to catch the entire broadcast, it will be recorded and it will stay online for 3 days after the broadcast, so you'll have the ability to catch it should you have a technical problem or some kind of interruption. The core thing that I want to get with you today, though, is not about the webinar itself. It's about you. And it's about, it's really about you, and it's about why you want business freedom. And so, and also it's about what business freedom isn't, because what it really isn't is working unbelievable hours and not earning enough money. That's not what business freedom is. That's what entrepreneurship is to an unfortunately high percentage of the people who strike out and start their first business. Now, I can remember like it was yesterday, my first week in business and my first real business. I can remember minute by minute what it was like. The first thing that happened is that I was working for an employer that I just could not bear to work for any longer. And so I was in this position where, as a young man, I was earning quite a lot of money and working for somebody that I just couldn't stand working for anymore. And I needed to kind of break away and do my own thing. And so I deluded myself. And frankly, if you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner, then you probably have from time to time deluded yourself as well, because as entrepreneurs, we are generally pretty optimistic as a group. Think about it. We'd have to be. When you realize that 4 out of 5 businesses won't even succeed, you got to be an optimist to invest in that, to decide to strike out and start yourself a business. And so that week I did that. I still remember. I remember writing my letter of resignation. I wrote it on a Wednesday. I didn't want to send it until Friday because I knew that that's payday, and frankly, I didn't expect that my boss would pay me 1 penny after my resignation. Laws and so on irrelevant in this case. I just thought that was the case, and as it turned out, I was right. And so I was in this, position of real anticipation and angst, and then that weekend I was unemployed. I knew that I had to do something different, and when I actually resigned, I wasn't immediately planning to start a business. I was entertaining a number of different job offers. I was really making a decision about what my future would be like. And it suddenly occurred to me that I wanted to be in control of my future. I didn't want my destiny to be in somebody else's hands anymore. And so I decided that it was time for me to become an entrepreneur, to really have my own business. And so I started it. And of course, what did I undertake? Well, I had to get business cards, and I had to figure out our website, and initial brochures and all this kind of stuff. And I worked, and a business plan. I had to get on the business plan, and I did a lot of those things. And it was a lot of excitement and a lot of enthusiasm. I still remember, living room floor being just covered in mind maps and business plans and logo ideas and all these great things. And after about a week of just loving being a business owner, reality sunk in, because pretty soon I was going to have to sell some stuff. Sitting on my floor creating was not going to get me anywhere. Doing stuff was going to get me somewhere. And so I started, picking up the phone. I started, bringing in new business, and slowly but surely I started building a business. And there came a point after about 2 or 3 years where the last thing in the world I had was freedom. The last thing in the world that I had was financial abundance. I was under constant stress. We were having cash flow problems on a regular basis. I was at the time going through an ugly divorce. It was a very, very difficult time in my life. And what I really did not have was business freedom. And I knew I needed to change it. And it was heavy. And so I did. I really turned my life and my business into an experiment. I said, look, I've been studying all this stuff by Michael Gerber and Stephen Covey and Tony Robbins and Jim Rohn, and I thought, and Dale Carnegie, and I thought, what, it's time for me to really start properly applying this stuff in my business to stop it being just an experiment or a theory. I needed to be real. I needed to take action. And so over the next couple of years, I would really create business freedom. And I'll tell you that there came a day when I remember kind of waking up one day, and I remember thinking to myself the first time, and I'm sure it had happened a few times before that, I just really hadn't noticed. I woke up one morning and I didn't have to go. Like, I had no meeting scheduled. There was no need. There's no job that I did. I was just running the business. So there was nothing I needed to go to work for. And I thought, wow, that's a funny feeling. And I realized that is business freedom. That's the beginning of it all. That's the first level of business freedom, when in a given day or even a given week, you don't need to be there. Well, I want to fast forward a little bit and tell you that I was in a great position after about 6 years where I didn't have to be there for weeks or months at a time. The business ran smoothly in my absence. If you've ever been to one of my live talks or live seminars, you may have played the entrepreneur freedom game with me. If you haven't been to one of these events, you want to come. It's a really neat game, and it will show you exactly where you are in the scale of business freedom, and it'll give you some really interesting insight into what has to happen for you to move from where you are to where you want to go. Speaking of live events, I know a lot of you have tuned in from Scandinavia, and I'm really excited to have you here. I'm excited to have the rest of you here too. The reason I'm particularly excited today about Scandinavia and, well, Northern Europe in general, is that in a couple of days I am flying to Oslo. And I'm here at a men's retreat in Northern California for a couple of days, and then on Monday I'm in Oslo. And that starts for me a 3-week tour that'll take me to obviously Norway, Sweden, Finland, Denmark, Poland, Estonia, and please forgive me if I've left any of the other countries off the list. I'm going to be traveling around a fair bit during that time. And so I want to make sure that if you're from Northern Europe and you're from one of those countries, that you connect with us, because I'd love to meet with you live. I'd love to encourage you to come to one of our events. And so hopefully I give you enough value today so that you can see that it's worth investing your time. So going from the 6-year to the 9-year mark, there did come a point after 9 years where I made the decision to sell my business. And this is a really crucial point that I want to make about business, and that is that if you have a business that you want to sell, that you badly want to sell, you probably can't sell it. And the reason I say that is that if you have a business that you can sell, why would you want to sell it? I mean, once a business is saleable, once somebody might want to buy it, it's generally because it's ticking along smoothly, it's running nicely, it turns a profit, it has great systems and procedures, it has motivated and inspired and empowered employees. In other words, it runs without you. So why would you want to sell it? And so this is the odd dichotomy of business, that if you have a business you want to sell, you probably can't. If you have a business that you could sell, you probably don't want to sell it. And so in a very strange sense, the game of entrepreneurship is about building a business that you never want to sell so you can sell it one day. And I arrived at that day. I was approached. It was really odd. I just kind of made the decision one day that it was time for me to go. I saw some trends coming in the industry. Something that I saw coming was, to me, what I would call a business iceberg, which is something we're going to talk more about a little bit later in this webinar. But I saw a business iceberg coming. That is to say, I saw some danger. And I thought, I could navigate this danger or I could move on. And I really felt like it was time for me to move on. And I got a call one day, and the call came in from these private buyers that wanted to buy the business from me. And so we undertook the process of negotiating the sale, and next thing you know, I sold the business, and I was completely free. I mean, I was at a place where I had all the capital that I needed to live the free life that I wanted. I retired from the IT sector, and I woke up one day and realized, wow, not only do I not have to go there, I'm really not, it's not mine anymore. And that started me on the next phase of my life, which is what has led to me being here with you. And since then, I've been involved in another variety of businesses, and I've had lots of fun. No more fun, though, that when I'm working with people like you on their businesses. I really, truly enjoy it. And I want to tell you why, because what I want to get to is your why. So my why is this, is that it really dawned on me at one stage, once I achieved the level of business freedom, that entrepreneurs with business freedom are really good for society. I mean, they're way better for society than the average person with a lot of time and money freedom, because most people with a lot of time and money freedom just watch more TV or spend their money on more alcohol or whatever. And entrepreneurs with more time and money, well, they're also different than politicians, because frankly, politicians with more time and money just use that time and money, well, I'm not even sure what they use it on, probably their re-election campaign. Imagine having a job where you spend half of the time in that job simply trying to earn your job back. So I want to say to you that entrepreneurs are the ones that we really want to work with. And the reason being is that once a business owner has achieved a basic level of business freedom, they arrive at a place where they start to either grow their enterprise, or they potentially start another enterprise, or they start giving back on a social level. They start creating better social benefit. In other words, they can help with nature conservation and improving our ecological conditions. They can influence politicians. They can make a change at a social level that I don't really think anybody else is empowered to make. And I recognized that one day because I had the opportunity to do a bunch of relief work at an earthquake site, just because I happened to have the time and money to be there. And while I was there, I was having this real epiphany that if I can help other business owners break through, if I can help them end the kind of slavery of entrepreneurship, then I'm really able to create a change. And luckily, as well as having tons of experience in business, it's funny, they say that experience, it's good judgment comes from experience. Experience, unfortunately, comes from bad judgment. Let me tell you, I have lots of experience because I've had lots of bad judgment and made many, many, many mistakes. I've made mistakes in a wide variety of industries and in a number of countries. And I say that to you because when I'm talking about business, I'm coming both from the place of somebody who's just read and studied and studied and studied so much information about business and marketing and people and psychology. And on the other hand, I've actually been in business where I've been applying these things. And so it's allowed me to connect some dots that I hope I can help you to connect. So my why is about helping you achieve a higher degree of business freedom in the hope that in doing so you will create a bigger business, you will create more employment, you will have a better life for yourself. I mean, here's the thing. We start a business thinking we'll have more time and money, and then we end up not spending nearly as much time with our families. We let our health slide, we let our social life slide. That comes to a stop today. Like, that is not what being an entrepreneur is about. It is about your personal freedom and your personal liberty. The ability to do what you want, when you want, with whom you want, whenever you want. That is real business ownership. So I want to ask you something before we really move on, and that is why? Why do you want business freedom? Why would you want your business to be a powerful, growing, quality-producing, standalone cash machine? Why would you want your business to be something that runs without you? Because when you're at that place, first of all, you have to understand, and we're going to address this in a little bit, I will tell you from personal experience, there is an emptiness in it. There is an emptiness in not being needed by your business. So we have to prepare ourselves for that. Once we've overcome that, though, what would you do? What would you do with the spare time? What would you do with the extra abundance financially? Why do you want business freedom? And I'll tell you, I'm asking you this because the more powerful your why, the easier it will be for you to overcome any obstacles. The more powerful your why, the easier it will be to achieve what it is you're doing. In other words, if your why is really, truly compelling to you, like must-have compelling, then when obstacles come up for you, they're just little speed bumps. They're not They're not, they're not obstructions. They're just something in the way to jump over. When your why isn't very powerful, it's really easy for stuff to pop up in front of you. I remember I had a sales job when I was a kid, and I hated it. I mean, I really didn't like it. I'm ever so grateful today that I had it. But we were doing door-to-door sales, and it was cold. It was in Canada. I didn't like it. And what's really fascinating is that one day I was driving along, and I got a flat tire. And I was like, thank God I got a flat tire. Hang on, I'm not kidding. I actually was really glad that I got a flat tire, because in that moment, changing a tire in the snow was more fun to me than my job. You see, an obstacle didn't just simply become an obstacle, it became a diversion. It became something that I kind of enjoyed. And so I remember over the next several years, I was still in that job. There were times when I would drive along and go, God, I wish I could get a flat tire right now. I just don't feel like going to this next sales call. And so when your why is really powerful, when you really have a goal that is massively important to you relative to your business freedom, then you're no longer like diverted by things that might otherwise be diversions. You recognize them as obstacles, things to overcome and break through, and you move on. So I want you to give some thought to that. What is your why? Why is your life better with business freedom? Why is your family's life better with business freedom? Why is your community's life better with you having business freedom? And what's the larger impact you could have? Get really clear on that why. In fact, if any of you are coming to our live events, either now in Northern Europe or anywhere else around the world, I'd love to hear your why. It's one of my favorite things to really get with people is their why. In fact, in a minute, we're going to have a little introduction to inception marketing. I'm going to talk to you about origin stories. Let me tell you something. When you hear about origin stories, you'll get this why thing is really, really important. All right, so having talked about why, let's talk about what's really going on. See, what's really going on for most people when they start a business is they make the fundamental, most basic mistake of entrepreneurship. Are you ready? Now, listen to me. Before I tell you this mistake, it's possible you've already made it, and that is okay. It's okay if you've already made this mistake. I've made it many, many times. If you have not made this mistake, or if you're in early startup mode, or you haven't even started your business yet, then you might want to avoid this mistake. If you've already made this mistake, it's okay. We're going to talk about how to recover from it. Here is the mistake. Starting a business built around your core skill set. Think about this. Somebody who, and this is an example I got from Michael Gerber 20 years ago, and it made such an impression on me. Imagine that you're an auto mechanic working at a car shop. You're an auto mechanic working at the car shop. And one day you decide it's time to start your own business. What kind of business will you start? Well, probably another car shop where you can be an auto mechanic. And you'll use the same kind of ads, and you'll look for the same type of location, and it'll all feel really easy to begin with because you've got this experience from being an auto mechanic. And then pretty soon, not only will you be fixing cars, you will also be doing administration, accounts, customer service, sales, negotiating leases, paying bills. In fact, you'll be doing everything and fixing cars. And here's the challenge. The challenge is that if you're working in your business, if you must work in your business, if your business requires you, if your business is addicted to you, then it's really difficult for you to work on your business. The difference between working in your business and on your business is the difference between being tactical and being strategic. Tactical means you're responding to given challenges in a given moment. You are reacting every day. Strategic means you are planning. You are making decisions at a more holistic level about the direction the business is going in. And you'll have more objectivity because you're able to see the game from above. Think about this. I'm always fascinated about armchair sports people. You know, they sit watching the game and they yell at athletes. And the reason they're yelling is because a play that looked absolutely obvious to them sitting in the stands or sitting in their chair at home looked absolutely obvious to them, did not look so obvious to the athlete on the pitch. Well, I want you to bear in mind, if you're thinking about, say, football, soccer, hockey, something like that, if you're down on the pitch, then you're seeing what's right in front of you. That's what's going on right now. That's what's in front of you. You can't see what's behind you. You might be able to hear some things. You might have some sense of what's going on. But what's going on is tunnel vision to a degree, what's in your field of view. When you're the armchair sports person, you're able to see the entire pitch. And so you're able to see the flow of the game a whole lot better. And as a consequence, you're able to make predictions that the player might not actually be able to make. In fact, Wayne Gretzky, who was considered the greatest hockey player by many, considered the greatest hockey player to have skated, He had a really interesting strategy because, you see, he was not the fastest hockey player. He didn't have the hardest shot. In fact, there was no one skill set that he was a total superstar at except everything. And by everything, what I mean is that he had a way of knowing what was happening on the ice. Well, it turns out that one of the mental tricks he played was to create an image of the entire pitch as though he was sitting in the stands or sitting watching it on a TV. And then he would put that picture above his head, fast forward it, and that would give him a sense of the game. Now, most of us cannot do that when we're inside our businesses. When we're inside our businesses, we're dealing with real issues, and we're dealing with stuff that's coming up on a daily basis. Oh, another email, another phone call, another staff meeting. Oh, a lawsuit here, a sales challenge there, a customer service thing. And so we're reacting. Now, in the sports metaphor, what's going on is that the armchair sports person is looking down, and they're able to see the whole picture and predict what's going on. They're able to see the flow a whole lot better. Well, when you're working in your business, that's when you're in the reactive thing where things are popping up in front of you, and everybody wants a meeting with you right now. Oh, just a second, I need to chat about this. Just one quick question. When you start working on your business, when your business is not addicted to having you in specific roles, then you are now able to see the entire picture. You're able to see everything that's going on. And it changes everything about the way your business works. The challenge is that when you build a business around your own core skill set, it kind of by nature puts you inside the business. You see, when I first started my company, my very first company, I did the same thing. My core skill set, sales. I was the top sales guy at the company I was working for before, so naturally I was like, I can start a business. I mean, sales is the most important thing in business. If it doesn't get sold, it won't get built. Everybody always says sales is the most valuable part of the business. Let me tell you right now, there's some truth to that, but it's not the whole story, not even close. I mean, right now I'll tell you, if you don't have really great accounting systems, you don't have a business. If you don't have really great systems and procedures, people that are handling delivery and after sales and customer service and stuff like that, if you don't have ways of handling those things that are systematic and strategic, you don't have a business. So sales is important. The challenge is there's all these other things that make sales work. And so in my world, I started my business where I was the primary salesperson in my company, which meant that I had to be on the phone every day trying to close business, which meant that the only time I had for working on the business was when I wasn't on the phone. Challenge is that there were times when I needed to be working on the business, and now I couldn't be making sales calls. Guess what my sales figures looked like when that happened? Down. And so I'd have these huge ups and downs of cash flow all the time because for 1 minute I'm focused on sales, then the next minute I'm focused on this other challenge. So building your business around your own core skill sets is a dangerous game. The challenge is most of us will do that. And we'll do it because it's easy. It's like, well, that's the #1 resource of the company, so I've already got it. We're ready to go. Fine. If you've made that mistake, like I have so many times, it's okay. It just means that to move yourself out of those roles, to move yourself out of being in the business psychology instead of being on the business, might be a little harder for you because you have a level of skills or a level of enjoyment of that given role. So I want to talk to you about a way of determining how you can do that. And this is one of the, I'm going to tell you right now, it's one of the simplest things. It's so simple, it's so easy, and so powerful that you might not do it. Like, I mean it. Like, there are times when somebody shows you something, go, this is so simple that it can't. It's like, there's a funny thing with the placebo effect. Do you understand what I mean by placebo when somebody gives you a sugar pill and says, this will cure everything? And it turns out that placebos are often as effective or even more effective than real medicine. Here's the really funny thing about placebos. The more invasive the placebo, the more effective they are. In other words, the bigger the pill, the more often they work. If you have a placebo surgery, like somebody actually cuts you and has a fake, that apparently scientifically, that has even a bigger impact because the more work that has to go into it, the more pain there is, the bigger the drug, the better the impact. Well, that same thing happens to us in business. Somebody comes along and shows us something so simple, so easy. It's too small a pill, can't be that powerful. Wrong. This thing that I'm going to show you, I learned a version of it when I was probably 23, 24 years old, and we've refined it over the years since. It is so powerful and so simple. Are you ready? This is called role mapping. This is where you take a different view of the way you handle organizational charts. So if you consider the way an organizational chart usually works, it's usually a function of putting up a bunch of boxes with people's names in them and then drawing lines between the boxes that somehow indicate who talks to whom and who reports to which department and so on. And they're usually fun to do, especially if you've got a few employees. If you don't have many employees, or if you only have you, it seems a little bit like a waste of time to begin with. I'll get there. In the meantime, though, if you have a few employees, it's kind of fun because you kind of get to see your company laid out properly. And so people have a lot of fun creating their organizational charts, and sometimes they'll even post them somewhere. And then within a week, they're out of date. Because somebody else has been hired, or somebody's been, promoted or moved, and this person now reports to that person. And so the organizational charts quickly fall out of date. And really, I don't think they were all that useful in the first place. They just create a quick sort of, bird's eye view of the business, and that's about it. Role mapping is different. Role mapping is where we do an organizational chart for your business that has no names in it to begin with. Now, I want you to understand, please bear with me, because some of you I know are like all by yourself. You're a solopreneur, and others of you I know have large businesses. This exercise that I'm describing to you right now is equally powerful at both ends of the spectrum. I've used it at both ends of the spectrum, and it's been mind-blowing each time. So I'm going to touch on both a little bit. So first I want to start with you, if you're like on your own, you're a solopreneur or you're a micropreneur, you have a small number of people working with you, say 2, 3, 4, something like that. Either way, this is the way the role map works. You create a list of all of the, looking a bit like an organizational chart, you create all the boxes of all the roles in your business. You create all the boxes of all the roles in your business with no names in them. So the top box might have your managing director, president, CEO, whatever title you use. And then below that person, there's probably somebody handling finance, and somebody else handling marketing and sales, and somebody else handling operations and logistics, and maybe somebody else handling IT. It may be different in your business. Then underneath those boxes, there'd be a number of people or roles that would report up to those roles. And the way you design this is really simple. The boxes are all empty except for the title. The boxes are all empty except for the title. Now, I did this when I started my first company by myself. So what this basically meant is that I had this huge layout of what I thought my company might look in, say, 3 years. And then what I would do is and this is what you need to do, is take your name and put it in every box that you're currently active in. Now, if you, like me at this stage, were a solopreneur, you are a solopreneur, then what's going to happen is your name is going to end up in every box. And at first this might feel somewhat stressful. Don't worry, your stress is going to be reduced dramatically in a moment, because this is where it's so simple, but here's where it gets so magical. The next step is you look at all the boxes and you realize they fall into 3 categories. There's boxes where, you know what, you like doing that job, you enjoy it, and you're happy to keep doing it for some time. Great. Then there's other boxes where you go, I hate that job. I never want to do it again. I can't stand that I have to show up at work to do it, and I will procrastinate everything about it. And then there's something in the middle where it's like, I don't really like it that much, but I can do it for now. Well, the next step is to prioritize them. Grab a red marker and circle all the ones where you absolutely are committed to getting yourself out of those roles. And then grab, say a yellow marker and circle all the ones where, long term, medium term, you'd like to get out of those roles. And then everything that's left is stuff that you don't mind taking some time before you exit out of those. This process is a process of what we call making mini exits. You see, I don't know if you have a planned exit strategy for your business. I think it's important to have one. The challenge is that business moves so quickly today that whatever you think your exit strategy is today, it might be completely different a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now. One thing that is true, though, is no matter what kind of exit you want, whether you want to joint venture your way out, whether you want to sell your business, franchise it, license it, take it for an initial public offering, whatever exit strategy you have in mind, one thing is really crucial, and that is that you have to make a series of mini exits to get out of every box that you're in. And so this exercise is really about helping you prioritize that. The red ones, I'm getting out now as quickly as possible. The yellow ones, I got to get out of those pretty soon too. And then the other ones that you'll get out of later, or you'll reprioritize them once you've dealt with the red and yellow ones. Now, I want to talk about something a little esoteric here for a minute. I hope you don't mind. I'm generally quite a practical guy. I just want to talk about something a little esoteric here. You probably hear a lot of talk about law of attraction and The Secret and stuff like that. And there's some really great lessons there. I think our psychology and our beliefs guide far more than we really can even accept at times. So I don't want to have that longer esoteric conversation right now. The one that I want to have is really that, if you think about attraction, attraction is being attractive. And of course, I'm not talking about your physical appearance, although the way you wear your hair and dress and stuff like that is obviously important. I'm more talking about your energetic attractiveness. And so I want to ask you a really basic question. I'd like you to imagine a you that has a role map where there's lots of roles that are all red and yellow that you can't stand doing, that you really don't like. That's the one you. And you have to go to work every day and spend 60 or 70% of your time in the red and yellow jobs. All right? Now let's take another you. A you that's like, say, 6 months or a year from now, where you have exited all of the red and yellow jobs, and you're only doing the ones that you actually quite like. Now, I want you to imagine that on any given day, a bunch of people come to your office to meet you. Which one do you think is more likable? The one that's spending a large part of their day doing the red and yellow, icky, gross jobs they don't like, or the one who's spending most of their time doing stuff they love? I know this is awfully basic, but consider it. It's unbelievably powerful. It's one of the reasons that business owners can go through exponential growth once they let go of their addiction or their need for control over jobs they don't like doing. Once you can figure out a way to give those jobs up, whether you outsource them, hire people, invite partners in to help, there are lots of strategies, we'll talk about that. Once you have exited from those roles, your job, your life becomes more pleasurable, and as a result of that, you become a more attractive person. And the more attractive a person you are energetically, the easier it is to raise money for your business, the easier it is to win new customers, the easier it is to attract unbelievable superstars to your business. People want to work for people that they like, that sometimes they even aspire to be like. And nobody aspires to being like a stress cadet. Nobody looks at somebody and goes, oh, that person, look at them, they're pulling their hair out, they can barely breathe, I want to be just like that. No. If they show up at your business and they see somebody who's just joy and expression, just loving what they do, it changes everything. It changes everything and creates opportunity for exponential growth. One of the biggest things that will hold up the growth of a business is an entrepreneur that is too busy telling themselves stories about why they're so busy, about why they can't let go of this job, or why they don't have the money to hire this person, and why, all of those stories are unattractive in nature, and they will make it more difficult to have great supplier relationships, great customers and clients, raise money, have a great relationship with the bank. Your charisma, your level of attraction will be massively improved as you move your life toward a place of doing what you love on a daily basis. Now, if you've built your business around your core skill set, what that means is building a business around you so that you can focus on your core skill set. A friend of mine owns a large stock trading company, investment firm. And he loves trading. He just loves it. He loves being on the desk, only he owns the company. And they've got like 50 or 60 brokers working for them. They're a big company. And never mind all the support staff and all the other regulatory people and legal people and so on. It's a big company. And here's the challenge. He really enjoys trading. So you know what? He has an office where if he has to do some administrative work, he can go be in that office and have meetings in that office. And he's got a desk on the trading floor. And he spends the vast majority of his time on the trading floor doing what he loves. Now, I want you to imagine for a minute that you're choosing an investment advisor. And you've got an investment advisor that spends most of their day sitting at a desk schmoozing with clients, or an investment advisor that just loves trading in the markets, just enjoys it with all their passion. Which one do you want to do business with? The one with the passion, the one with the enjoyment. That's absolutely key. So using these mini exits and using role maps can cause unbelievable shifts in your own enjoyment of your business and your enjoyment of life, and in the growth that you can experience in your business. Now, I know I said this works just as well for large companies. It absolutely does. I bought a company once in California, and I was told that we had some very key people. In fact, we had one specific, unbelievably key person, and I was told if we ever lost that person, that's it. The business would be over. Well, it would have been nice to know that before I bought the company. So we figured it out. Here we are. We've got this unbelievably crucial person. So what did we do? We created a massive role map with no consideration to whom it was that we already had in the business, just what were all the roles in the business. A huge map of all the roles, a very complicated business. And once we created the role map, we then started putting all the names in. And so I put the names in the boxes that I was handling, and all the names went in. And now here's where we found two types of conflict that will exist on your role map. One is where one person's name is in a huge number of boxes. That is a problem for so many reasons. Nobody can do all of those jobs properly. Nobody. Even if they're the best person for those individual jobs, they can't do all of the jobs as well as they could if they were only doing one of them. In other words, I'd rather have somebody come in and do that job as 80% as well as I can do it because they're focused on it 100% of the time. And so if you notice that one person's name is in tons of boxes, then that's a problem. And so again, you want to go through the prioritization and say, well, which of these roles should we be moving that person out of? Another challenge is when you run into a situation like this. A box has more than 2 names in it. That can be really difficult because you end up in this situation of going, well, who really is responsible for that role? There are 2 people doing it, but who's ultimately responsible? It's fine if there are 2 people in a department, one reporting to the other, or with different ideas or different roles within that department. When you have 2 people sharing a role, you have the potential for conflict. So whether you're a sole practitioner or whether you are whether you're running a larger business, it's really, really key that you use role maps to really begin to strategize and plan the future of your business. And you will find, I kid you not, I mean, do the exercise, really. And if you do it, share with me that you did it. You will find this. The minute you start to circle the red boxes, the boxes that you're in that you don't want to be in, the minute you start to circle them, you're telling yourself that you're going to get out. And you will notice that your stress levels already begin to lower just with the knowledge that you're beginning a plan to get out. Now, there are some steps. I'll touch on them briefly here. Obviously, if you're coming to our live talks, I'll go into this in a lot more detail so you really get it. There are some steps to go through that will make it even easier to get out of these roles. Because you see, one of the things that's difficult for people is leaving a role. Even if they don't like the job, it's getting out of that job because they have one of 2 major problems. There are others that could be a part of it, but just for today, there are 2 fundamental challenges people have with giving up roles they don't like. One, significance. They kind of get off on doing that job. They get off on being good at it, and people praise them for it. So they get a sense of personal significance. And by the way, being a martyr, I mean, there's no more significance than being a martyr. So it's like, yes, I have to do the accounts because no one can do them as well as me, right? Martyrdom. And tons of significance, and the only one who can handle our very complex accounts, right? I don't like it, but I have to do it. There's a tremendous amount of significance in playing that game. It's a story, and it's not useful to you at all. And then the other aspect is, or the other challenge is the sort of need for certainty. That, well, if I gave this role to somebody else, how do I know it will be done properly? How would I know they do it as well as me? And so this idea that once you hand a role over, that you're having to trust. And that's a really big challenge. This comes up all the time. In fact, just recently I was in Scandinavia. I was teaching our business freedom experience, and I had a woman say that to me. She goes, I can't do it. I can't. And I said, well, what's the role you don't want to give up? She goes, exactly the example you just used. It counts. I mean, I got to do that. Like, that's got to be right. We have to know the bills are entered properly. We got to pay people on time. We got to collect the money. I mean, that's got to be done. No question. I said, I understand that it needs to be done. I said, what would have to happen in order for you to be able to give up that role and feel better about it? She goes, nothing. Nothing. I couldn't give up that role and feel good about it. I mean, there's nothing I could do. And I said, all right, here's a question I have for you. Imagine we were to create a report that told you exactly how much money you had, how much money you owed, how much money was owing to you, how many orders were in processing, how much stuff was pending shipping. And imagine you had a report that you got on a weekly basis that told you exactly how things were every single week, and that somebody would prepare this report and hand it to you so that if there were any challenges, you could get involved. I said, if you had that report, do you think you'd be able to hand over that job to somebody else? And she goes, yes. Well, then make the report. And that is, I tell you right now, we go through this in more detail. It's very simple, though. You look at the leading indicators out of any given role, you create a functional report so that you know what's happening in that role, and then it'll become so much easier for you to hand that role over to somebody else because you'll know what's happening in that department, and you'll be able to make course corrections when you need to. Information is absolutely key, and you'll find that as you want to leave individual roles in your business, having the right reports, by the way, you won't even need them weekly. You see, when I first did this in my first company, I had them weekly. I have to have them weekly in order for me to hand over these accounts and trust somebody. I got to have weekly reports. And then after, I think there was this one space after about 6 weeks, my accounts woman came up to me. She goes, Eric, are you even reading the reports? And it suddenly occurred to me I hadn't looked at one in 6 weeks. I hadn't looked at one at 6 weeks because I had gotten to a place where I trusted the person that I no longer needed to see the report. If there was a problem, they would communicate with me. And so we went to a situation where we switched to monthly reporting and then to quarterly reporting. I never stopped looking at monthly profit and loss and balance sheets and stuff, but the detailed reporting structures, I just didn't need them anymore. I'd gotten over the addiction, the procedures were in place, and the department was running smoothly. So this concept of role mapping and getting yourself free of stuff is fascinatingly, and it's fascinating and unbelievably important. There are, of course, some constraints. You know, for example, well, you could say, well, Eric, I mean, yeah, this makes very good sense to me, but I can't afford to bring those people on. I'm not ready yet. I understand that. I really do understand it. And there are creative ways to make that happen. In fact, if you've got questions about that, pop them in, and we'll get to them. We'll get to them at some stage during this call. I do want you to know there are solutions beyond the solutions that you normally think. I ran into a situation where I was ramping up one of my companies, and we were hiring service technicians, and we landed this huge contract, and I was going to have to hire a bunch more technicians, but I was really concerned about hiring them because, you know, what happens when the contract, you know, because it was a short-term contract, what happens when it ends? I've got all these employees, and what if we don't land more business? And I was really in this dilemma of how do I service this one contract? And I was just going to have to hire the people. I mean, what else could I do? And then I'd probably have to lay them off, which I would hate to have to do. And then on top of that, it's expensive to do that. I mean, what was I going to do? Luckily, I had a business mentor, and I believe every business owner out there should have a business mentor that is, or more than one, that's traveled the road ahead of them. And this person had traveled the road ahead of me, and I went to them and talked about my problem. And they said, oh, it's simple. I said, well, if it's simple, tell me. And they go, well, it's so simple, I'll tell you, and you won't do it. I said, no, I will, I really will. And they said, in your case, overtime. I said, what do you mean overtime? And they said, well, look, just be prepared to pay overtime. I realize it's time and a half and you're paying more per hour. The challenge is it'll get you through your current workflow. And then at the end of your workflow, you just go back to regular hours, and you don't have the added expense of all the layoffs and severance packages and so on, and it'll be easier. You just have to check with your team if they'd like to work overtime. I thought, well, all right, I'll give it a try. And so I got on the phone with our workshop manager, and I said, hey, you know, we've got this season coming up here. How do you think the team would feel about overtime? And they said they'd love it. They'd love overtime. Christmas is coming. It would let them earn all kinds of extra. And so off we went with overtime. And sure, it cost me a little bit more per hour for the overtime hours, yes. And when that particular contract went away and we settled back down into routine hours, everybody just went back to the regular hours. And I didn't have severance issues to worry about. I didn't have to go through the process of laying people off. It was brilliant. You see, one word from a mentor solved me a huge stress, a huge challenge, and probably thousands and thousands of dollars. Now, in your case, I'm not sure what the constraints for you would be. Some of you are saying, well, I don't have time or budget for a full-time person. I understand that. You may not need a full-time person. In each of the businesses that I've had, I've almost never had a full-time bookkeeper to begin with. I've got myself a part-time bookkeeper, somebody who comes in once a week, puts the bills in, creates the invoices, raises the payments, and then I sign everything. Doesn't need to be full-time until the business justifies it. And then one of the other issues that I run into frequently, I bet some of you are saying this right now, I don't have time to hire an assistant. Yeah, okay, you don't have time to hire an assistant. I get it. What happens is that we need somebody to help us, as an assistant or an admin person or somebody in some given role in the business. And you're like, yeah, but the time it would take to train that person, I don't have time to train somebody. Yes, I understand. That's because what happens is we tend to wait until we're too busy, and then we're so busy. Well, here's the thing. Right now, I can tell you there's a simple thing you can do. And that is that you either do this yourself, or if you're lucky enough to have some people around you, or if you want to get an intern or a temp to come in and help you with this, it's really simple. When you are getting ready to bring somebody in to do a role or a job, before you bring them in, audit the process. What I mean is take a look at all the jobs that they have to do within their role, do the jobs yourself, and write down all the steps that you're going through, or have somebody shadow you and write down all the steps. Like, how does an invoice get raised? How do we log into QuickBooks? Which templates do we use? Just write the steps down. And as you write those things down, you can very easily have somebody, I mean, look, guys, you can go onto Odesk or Fiverr and pay somebody a few dollars to take your point-by-point list of the jobs and turn it into a little procedure. And then you can look at that procedure and audit it, make sure it's correct. And now when you hire somebody, you can say, I'm going to run through this with you once, and here's the procedure. If you have any questions, come and find me. instead of like feeling like you have to train somebody for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, because by writing these things down, you kind of understand what's going on. Look, this is going to sound awfully simple to you because these days I think people use templates a lot, but if you're writing an email that you know you're going to have to write again and again and again, save it. Save the email in a text file somewhere. Save these emails, make sure they're really nicely proofed, and that way when you've got to send that email off to somebody again, or that letter, or whatever the case may be, you go to your hard drive and you get the copy and you cut and paste it. Now, I know you're probably doing stuff like that already. It's just that the more the documents in your business are templatized, and you don't have to create them all the time, the easier it is to hire somebody, bring them in, train them, and pretty soon you go, oh, I don't have to do that anymore. And you just got a little bit more freedom. Think about that right now for a second. In fact, I'd love to see some comments on this. If there was a role in your business that you could release just by pressing a button, if there was a role in your business that you could release just by pressing a button, what would it be? Think about that. Like, what role would you like to just get rid of? Now I want you to imagine for a minute you've pressed a button, you no longer have to do that role. How much time does that give you in a week? In a month? What would you do with that time? Think about it seriously. I mean, is there a role that you're spending 2, 3, 4, 5 hours a week on or more? And what if you suddenly no longer had to do it and you had total confidence that somebody else was doing it and they were doing it well and you were getting good reports? What would it be? Think about that. And then what would you do with that time? How more proactive could you become? As a matter of fact, would you take some time for yourself? Maybe that creates some more time for your family, or would you reinvest that time in your business? I mean, I don't know. It's up to you. The challenge is that we have these roles that are stealing time from us. And they don't have to anymore. That stops today. And here's why it stops today. Because there's another principle, and I'm going to talk a lot about this during my live events, and you definitely, if you're in a region where I'm going to be, you really, really, really want to come for this. Here's the thing. There's a concept a metaphor that I came up with some time ago, I mentioned it a little bit earlier, called business icebergs. So let me define a business iceberg. You see, a business iceberg is a large looming threat that's on the horizon. And the reason that we call it an iceberg is that it's often submerged. I mean, the vast majority of it is outside of your purview, outside of what you can see. And it quite often is accompanied by fog and obscurity. It's changes in legislation, new economic conditions, a new competitor offering something that you've never considered before. Imagine for a minute that you're running Yahoo and all of a sudden Google comes along. I mean, Yahoo, the internet directory. Some of you will remember back, some of you won't. Some of you will remember when you used to use Yahoo to look up stuff on the internet. Do you? Suddenly Google comes along. Boom, they're gone. That's a business iceberg that smoked Yahoo. They're gone. Gone, gone, gone. You see, and what about, like, I'll tell you, the very first time I saw a business iceberg, I was about 17 or 18 years old. I went to a record store to buy a copy of Aerosmith's new album. I was a big Aerosmith fan, and they had a new album coming out. I went to the store to go get it, and when I got to the store, I saw my first compact discs. I didn't really think much about the compact discs. I just, I just saw them. I thought, oh, interesting. I was like everybody else. I mean, look. When the cassette tape came out, they thought record albums had gone. In fact, when the 8-track tape came out, and if any of you know what I'm talking about, you're dating yourself now. But when the 8-track tape came along, they thought record albums were gone. They weren't. Cassettes. Albums survive everything. So why would the CD be any different? And over the next 6 months, boom, the vinyl record industry was over. And I watched it happen, and I'm just leaving school and I'm just, considering my future. And I saw an entire industry to get vaporized, every job, every business within it. And then suddenly it was like, oh my God, that can happen anytime. And so from that point on, whenever I worked in a business, whenever I had my own business, one of the things I was constantly doing is standing on the deck of the ship, watching for business icebergs, watching for stuff coming. Now here's the challenge. If your role map is still full of you, if you're still doing all this stuff inside your business, how can you see the icebergs coming? You really need to see them, because an iceberg can come along and wipe out your business, no question about it. An iceberg can come along and wipe out your industry, no question about it. An iceberg can also be the biggest opportunity ever to come along. I'll give you an example that kind of encompasses both of those. In one of Richard Branson's books, I'll have to check which one it was. I feel like it was in Losing My Virginity. In that book, Richard describes a situation where somebody comes to him and says, hey, there's this new music compression technology that means that we can take digital music and put them on these in a little device, and you could have like 1,000 songs on this little device. And for whatever reason in that moment, Richard didn't see the magic of that, didn't see one of two things. There were two things he should have seen that day. One thing he didn't see was that this was a major threat to his music business. It was a massive threat. It was a threat bigger than CDs to albums. Digital music would be to all physical music. And he couldn't see that in that moment. And the other thing he couldn't see is the phenomenal opportunity that it presented, because somebody was going to have to handle the distribution of all this digital music. If Richard had not been caught up, if he'd seen this iceberg for what it was, we would right now buy most of our music probably from Virgin, because he might have beaten Apple to the punch. Today, iTunes is responsible for, I can't even remember the latest number, 70, 80, maybe 90% of all music sold goes through one distribution channel, because they were the business iceberg. And in the meantime, Richard Branson's music business was, obliterated. So he both missed the warning of the iceberg, and he also missed the opportunity. Now, I'm using him as an example because he writes the story as a lesson for all of us. I'm not suggesting that, I would have been any more brilliant in that situation and seeing the icebergs. What I'm getting at is that the more caught up we are inside a given business or inside a given project, the less likely it is we'll see these things coming. You remember earlier I told you that I felt something happening in my industry and I wanted to sell my company? I'll tell you what it was. That at the time that I had my business, we sold a lot of mobile computers, wireless networking technology, handheld computers. Very much like what we all carry around with us today, only this is before we all had one. This is back in the day when only the grocery stores had them for doing, auditing their inventory and all that kind of stuff. And at the time, these devices had very proprietary operating systems on them, which meant that once you bought one model, you really had to have that model and that model only. Well, I noticed that Windows was coming out with a more generic operating system called Windows CE. And then I saw that Palm was coming out with their own operating system. And I saw these as a threat to our business because it would turn all these items into pure commodities. You would no longer need the same one you bought the first time, which would mean that margins would start to come down. I needed to get out of the business. And I sold at exactly the right time, because that's exactly what happened. Margins were eroded immeasurably. It became an extremely difficult business to be in. I sold at exactly the right moment because 3 years earlier I had achieved full business freedom and I did not need to be there inside my business on a daily basis. So I guess what I want to do is I want to offer you a little exercise that you can do to kind of, give this some thought. And that is, right now, you've taken some time to be here with me. You don't need to think about what's going on in your day. In fact, let that stuff go for a minute. Just while you're with me right now, and if you're coming to be with me live, we're going to go through a workshop together on this, and I'll guide you through it. But I want you to do it right now with me anyway. I want you to just take a moment and think about what some of the possible threats are out there for you. What could happen to cause your business a challenge? Could laws change that change the way your industry is regulated, or could a new competitor pop up? It's interesting because at one of our seminars, I had a client in the seminar that said, well, I can't think of what my business iceberg is. And I said, well, what's your business? And he says, well, we run a dating website. And we're like all the other dating websites. We allow people with a free membership to join, and then in order to get full features, they pay for their membership, and it's going really well, and I just don't really see what the business iceberg is. And I said, I'll tell you right now what it is. Right now, I'll tell you what it is. It's free dating, because it's around the corner. It's going to happen. I guess it already probably has happened to a degree, but one of these days, it's going to happen full bore, because somebody is going to recognize, maybe you will, having watched this video, somebody is going to or maybe he did when I told him this, but somebody is going to recognize that in the same way that Facebook makes a phenomenal amount of money by just owning your data and owning your patronage, a dating website could do the exact same thing. Instead of getting all cheap and worried about the monthly membership fees, if a dating website found a way to be secure and free, they would be able to attract a phenomenal amount of volume to their dating website and then sell really beautifully targeted advertising to people they know what they're thinking about. And what if somebody started that free dating website? And he said, that would put us out of business. I said, there's a business iceberg for you. Now, I said, here's the next strategic question. If that's a potential threat to your business, what's the potential opportunity within it? He said, well, I could do it. I could be the one that does that. I said, exactly. And so what you want to do is always be ready for those icebergs, because you might be able to use them to be the next big thing in your business. So take a moment again right now and just think about this. Just think about what could threaten your business right now. And the threats could include, like I say, changing legislation, a new type of competitor, new technological change, economic change. Sometimes icebergs are inside your business. They could be employees that you've got that you know are a challenge. Once you really identify them as icebergs, you really put yourself in a position where you have the real significant potential to do something about them, to really begin to change. So give some thought to that, and again, pop some ideas in the chat there because I'm interested to see your icebergs. But you know what? That's very heavy stuff, and it's unbelievably important. I'm telling you right now, I would take at least a month, at least an hour a month, I should say, and focus on that. And if you don't have a mastermind team, if you don't have a group of people that you connect with on a regular basis, other entrepreneurs, get one. Get one right away. You should be using mastermind principles in your business all the time. And so the beauty of that is you can sit down with your group, you can sit down with your mastermind group and say, hey guys, what's going on? Like, I want to know what you think might threaten my business, because sometimes they have that armchair view, they have the top-down view, and they can look at everything when you're caught inside it. And they may be able to help you identify that. Matter of fact, you might want to do a workshop even within your company if you've got employees or you've got partners, because sometimes they'll have views that you haven't seen. And so icebergs are absolutely something you need to keep an eye on, and you really can't if you're inside the business all the time. All right, so let's talk about something else, because you see, what often happens is I have a real chicken and egg problem, because there are two core areas that I love to speak on in business. One is, how do you construct a business that allows you to have total personal liberty and freedom? I mean, how do you create true business freedom? And then the other one is, how do you massively and radically improve your revenue so that you can do this stuff to create business freedom? The trouble is, there's a chicken and egg problem, because some people say, well, yes, but Eric, I can't afford to do the things you're describing. I can't hire somebody. I can't put that system in place because I don't have enough sales. And then on the other side, people say, well, but Eric, you've taught me these great marketing ideas. I just don't have time to do them. So I never know which one to teach first. I'm kidding. Of course, I always know which one to teach first. And in this webinar, what I wanted to do is show you the possibility of more time, so that when I show you some interesting marketing stuff, you know that even if you don't have that spare time right now today, that there is a path for creating that time, and a bigger why. You see, because if you knew for sure that there were marketing activities you could undertake that would absolutely double your sales, I suspect you'd find a way to make that happen. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about one really important aspect of inception marketing. Inception marketing is a marketing construct that I put together, and it's an amalgamation of my own business experience, some great stuff that I've learned from other people like Jay Abraham and of course Chet Holmes, and it's a really strategic marketing model, and it's called inception marketing because the word inception really means the beginning, and what we're talking about is the beginning of the idea that someone wants to buy something from you. That's what inception marketing is about. It's about somebody arriving at the conclusion that they want to buy something from you, and that it was their own idea, that your marketing was so subtle and so effective that they arrived at the conclusion on their own. And so this is not a whole workshop on inception marketing. We do those too, so keep tuned into our website or Facebook and what have you. We will be doing more of those. I want to show you one really key aspect of inceptive storytelling. Now, the first thing is, an inceptive story is a type of story that we train and that we teach and that we help people build. And it's a story that is, at its heart, so engaging that your prospects want to hear it, and that it's so well constructed that it subtly moves them to the realization that they both want and need your product and service, and that they really can only get it from you. It's a very strategic style of marketing. And one of the core components inside an inceptive story is something we call an origin story. Now, guys, origin stories are one of my absolute favorite things, especially for those of you who are handling any of your own personal marketing where you're the front and face of your business. It works for every business. It's just, in that particular case, it's like magic sometimes. And you see, an origin story it's also, you could call it an epiphany story or a paradigm shift story. It's a story where ultimately you share with your clients and your prospects how really committed you are to what you do and why you're so committed. So I want to give you two examples, real live examples. My favorite, if you've seen me speak live, you maybe heard these before. I love these examples. I want you to think for a moment. Like, imagine that you're about to register a new trademark, your first ever trademark, or maybe you've done it before. And let's say I've introduced you to a couple of lawyers that can handle your trademark application, and you're going to get to meet them at this networking event. So you show up at the networking event, and you meet the first lawyer. And the lawyer says to you, yes, I handle trademark law. I graduated first in my class, and I've handled thousands of trademark applications. I can certainly take good care of you. Sounds good. I mean, you're looking for a trademark attorney, first in his class, lots of experience. I think it's a good deal. You know, there's still the other lawyer, though. I mean, you don't want to just go with the first thing, so you want to check it out. So you go meet the other lawyer. And so the other lawyer says, well, I'll tell you what. Oh, you walk up to the lawyer and say, hey, listen, I'm thinking of registering a trademark, and I'm looking for some help. And the lawyer says, oh, that is fun. What? It's fun. Trademarks, they're unbelievable. You know, when I was 14 years old, the lawyer might say, when I was 14 years old, I remember reading this article about how Disney was going to lose their trademark on Mickey Mouse because there's like a limit to trademarks. I didn't even know that. And so what was happening is they were going to lose their trademark on Mickey Mouse, and they were fighting really hard to keep it. And at first, I thought, how greedy. I mean, come on, you've had the trademark for whatever it is, 50 years or something. Who cares if some other people make money on your trademark? But then as I started reading the article and understanding the issues, I realized it's not just about that. I'm sure that's a part of it. It's also about quality. I mean, if other people start making Mickey Mouse products, it's one thing to lose those sales, but the other thing is they might make bad quality versions. And so they might do things that tarnish the brand, and that would then have an impact on the overall Mickey Mouse brand and on the Disney brand. It could be detrimental to a business in a significant way. And so over the next couple of years, while Disney was fighting this out in the courts, I read every article I could find on this. And by the time I finished school, I knew I had to be a lawyer, and I knew I had to focus on intellectual property law. So, which lawyer would you hire? Which one? I think we both know. You're going to hire the one that's OCD, right? You're going to hire the one that's obsessive compulsive about trademarks because they love it. He's got such a passion for it, right? And then another example, and this comes from a live example. We had a client, an accountant, at one of our seminars in Scandinavia a few months ago, and she was asking about how could she come up with her origin story. You know, she's an accountant, and you know, I don't know if you know many accountants, but most accountants are not very good at marketing. It's not their forte, right? And so she's kind of going, well, you know, what can I do? What's my origin story? And I said, well, I think your origin story probably has something to do with Sudoku puzzles. And she goes, what? And I said, I bet you do Sudoku puzzles. And she goes, yes, I do. How did you know that? And I said, I'll tell you how I knew. I knew because you've been in the seminar for 2-3 days. I've kind of gotten to know you now, and you are a number pervert. You love numbers. You just love numbers. And so probably when you're done doing your clients' accounts, you probably go out and buy Sudoku books and do more numbers for free. In fact, you're paying to do those numbers. And she goes, yes, that's really true. Well, you see, the reason she's a little embarrassed is none of us like to have our obsessive-compulsive stuff shown to the world, right? We get embarrassed by it. Turn that off. If you can find a way to get paid for your obsessive-compulsive stuff, that is one of the greatest secrets in the world. And the fact of it is that the real joke is that quite often the stuff that we're really good at and obsessive-compulsive about is stuff we're willing to give away for free. Well, in this case, she's an accountant. She's obsessive-compulsive about numbers. And by the way, you know, people in the room, I don't know if they were totally following how obsessive-compulsive she was, or obsessive she was, so I wanted to kind of prove it. So I picked up a piece of paper, and I said, I want you to imagine that I've got a piece of paper here, and it's a spreadsheet. And on that spreadsheet, there's numbers and formulas, and one of the squares just doesn't add up, and I can't find the error. I said, could you do it for me? She goes, yes! I took it away. I said, no, you can't have it. I have some questions first. I said, how long would you spend on this to solve the problem? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, well, how long? And she goes, there's no how long. I would solve it. I don't care how long it would take. I said, so like you wouldn't sleep until you solved it? She goes, yeah, that's right. I wouldn't. And I said, and how good would you feel once you solved it? And she says, oh, I feel so good. When I find that mistake on the spreadsheet, I know some of you know what I'm talking about. You either know personally or you know somebody that's like this. The minute I solve the problem on that spreadsheet, I just get this feeling. It's like a rush of endorphins. Yes, that is how we're going to get to her origin story, because you see, her clients need to know that she's sick like that. Her clients need to know how much she loves numbers, because given the choice between an accountant who's got lots of great education or an accountant who has lots of great education and is obsessive compulsive about numbers? Which one do you want? And so I said to her, when you're doing an initial consultation with a client, you want to get chatty with them. Like, you're going to ask them why they started their business, and then they're probably going to say, oh, what made you get into accounting? And then you're going to go, well, I'm a little embarrassed to admit to you, I got into accounting because, frankly, I just love numbers that much. I mean, I'll tell you, when I'm done here with you, I'm going to go home and do Sudoku puzzles. I just love them. When there's something wrong on a spreadsheet and I find the error and I solve it, it just feels so good. People are going to want to do business with you when they know that's how you feel about what you do. And so that origin story is that story that goes back to the moment of passion, the moment you recognize that, in a sense, you are obsessive about what it is that you love to do. Now, I know some of you are sitting out there going, I haven't found that passion yet. I understand that. When you start digging into your origin story, you may actually find that you have a passion that you weren't even aware of and that it was underneath the whole time. Obviously, if you come to one of our live events, we're going to go through a process and help you pull that out. And if you're not coming, if you're in a city that I'm not coming to yet, then I just want you to think of it in this way. First of all, if you're a man, one of the great ways to help you find your passion is just find some solitude and really make sure you're not distracted by the internet and television and people. And not for an hour, I mean like for a few days. You'll often find that it is in that solitude and silence that your passion begins to speak to you. Think about all the primitive cultures out there that send their young men on these long walkabouts, right, to go and find out who they really are. And often for women, it's really about talking to each other and really sharing your passions. You see, women are so intuitive naturally. The trouble is that they're often more intuitive about other people than they are about themselves. Aren't we all, right? And so what you might want to do is ask the people around you, what do you think my passion is? I feel like it might be this and this. And then you're going to get this dialogue to help you find that. And in that discovery, you may well find your origin story. When you figure out how to weave your origin story into your inceptive story, you'll come to a place where at the end of your marketing, whether it's face-to-face contact, standing in front of an audience, a website, a video, a radio advertisement, when you're able to communicate how much passion you have for what you're doing, it changes the entire game. So that's an introduction to one small piece of inception marketing. If you want to find out more about inception marketing, you can go to inceptionmarketing.com, and there's some information you can get there. In the meantime, what I want to do is I'm going to start. Lots of comments have come up. So Jackie and I are going to talk about some of the comments. So Jackie, if you can unmute yourself and get ready. We're going to talk about the questions. Bear in mind that we're running a little bit of a delay, so if we don't get to your question right away, we're going to do the best we can. Jackie, also keep me on time point here. I'm not even sure where we are. And the other thing I'm going to do, I believe, is I'm going to put a pop in. Let's see here. No, what I'm going to do is what I want to suggest is that if you're in Northern Europe or if you are in Scandinavia, then I'm going to be there over the next 3 weeks quite a lot. And so if you go to elevate.no, then you're going to find all the events listed there. And also, we're going to send a follow-up to make sure you know where to go there. But like I say, I'm going to be in I'm going to be in Oslo. I'm going to be in Sweden. I'm going to be in Finland, Poland. I'm going to be in lots of places. And please do check with Elevate. Check our website. And also, frankly, if you want to know about events that we're doing in other places, just contact us through my website, which is in the title bar beneath me. And just contact us there and let us know what city you're in. And then when we've got events in that city, we're definitely going to let you know about it. I'm hoping that I get to connect with you live, absolutely. And so let's move on to questions. So Jackie, jump in with me here. I know we had some to begin with. I do want to get to Brian. This is from Brian Main. Brian, if you guys don't know Brian, Brian's just a phenomenal guy. He teaches goal mapping, and I'm just such a big fan. I met him in Scandinavia. We have the same promoter, Elevate, over there, and he's just such a great guy. And so he's popped in this question. I wanted to get to it first right away. And he says, do I believe that it's right to set goals? I think this is such an important question. Do I think it's right to set goals? This is a much deeper topic than I can really give full justice to, but I have a distinction for you here that I think is going to help a great deal. You see, because in my life, I've been very fortunate with goals. I started setting goals as a kid, like 17, 18 years old, and it was like magic for me. I'd set a goal and it would happen. I'd set a goal and it would happen. And then there came a point in my late 20s or maybe in my early 30s where I would set goals and they wouldn't necessarily transpire as quickly and easily as they had before. And what we've noticed in this industry of achievement and personal development that dates back to the Dale Carnegies and Napoleon Hills and comes right up to present day with people like Tony Robbins and so on. There's been some debate about whether goals are useful and should they be written and should you share them with people and all this kind of stuff. And the answer is, I don't know. What I mean is that there are lots of different answers and they're contextual. For example, there are some goals that if you don't share them, good luck to you. The fact is that when you're able to share a goal, you're opening the door to having people help you share your goals. I was doing a seminar in London, I don't know, about 15 years ago. It was not a big seminar. There's like maybe 100 people. And we were teaching a seminar, and one person raised their hand, and they said, you know, I have this desire to really transform my body. He really wanted to add, and he wanted to get into bodybuilding, and he really wanted to transform his body. He was fit already, but he just wanted to absolutely take it to the next level, and he wanted to train with like a world champion. He didn't want to just go to some gym. He wanted to train with a world champion. And then I said, well, what is it, you know, why do you want to do this? And he kind of went into that conversation. And then on the other side of the room, a couple of minutes later, this guy raised his hand and he says, you know, my biggest passion is I want to learn to fly. I want to learn to fly, and in particular, I want to fly I want to fly on some old, I want to fly like a biplane. It's just a big passion of mine that I want to do. The guy that stood up to say they want to fly a biplane or an old plane, he was ripped, like just unbelievably fit. And then as he finished asking, you know, telling the world what his goal was, he says, oh, by the way, to the gentleman over there, I was a world champion weightlifter, and he was a world-class martial artist and all this kind of stuff. And he says, and if you'd like to come and have some training with me, I'm happy to help you out. And the guy stood up, and he had this look on his face. And at first I thought it was just unbelievable gratitude that even in this small room of, say, 100 some odd people, that there's this clean matchup. Guys, this is what happened next. It's almost unbelievable. I was standing there watching it happen. The guy stood up, and he says, I so graciously accept your offer. And what you need to know about me is I run an airfield where we have flying lessons and antique planes. I could not believe it. So are there times when you should share your goals? Absolutely. Are there other goals that you might want to keep more quiet? Yes. There are some goals that you might want to keep the charge inside you until you're ready to share it. But let's really get to Brian's question here. Should you set them or not? My feeling is very simply this. Yes. You should set goals. Here is the distinction. Here's the most important thing with your goals. The thing that will hold a goal back from happening is your own resistance or comfort with the goal. If you set a goal, think about it. If you set a goal that's like super, super easy and it's going to happen, you don't get a lot of charge or excitement about it. You go, well, my goal is to have lunch today. Well, you're probably going to have lunch. And if you don't, you'll eat later. So it's not so enticing. When you set a goal that says, hey, I want to increase my income by 30% this year, hey, there's some charge. It's like, yeah, I'd like that. And in a sense, the bigger the goal is, the higher that charge gets. And so the more motivation you have, and the more obstacle crushing you're able to do. And then there hits this threshold, and for everybody it's different. There hits this threshold where the goal gets bigger, 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 and the charge is growing and growing and growing, and then suddenly the goal gets too big for your comfort level, and the charge goes away, and the belief falls off. And once the belief has fallen off, the goal is no longer useful to you. So what you want to do is find that threshold, find that place that when you're setting the goal, that you get up to the full level of charge for that goal without crossing over into the precipice. Now, there's another thing you can do. We're gonna leave this last point for today, and because I could do a whole webinar on this one topic, maybe I will. Thank you, Brian. The one thing I want to tell you is that comfort level that you have around setting that goal, that is movable. And so as you set a goal and you feel it coming up, like the charge is building, it's a little bit uncomfortable, but I'm excited, and then you hit the ceiling. When that ceiling is movable, and there's lots of ways to move it, like mantras, incantations, visualizations, all of those things can move that up. And you know what, we will, Jackie, make a note, we're going to do a webinar on this because it's a lot of fun. But that's my answer. You must set goals. You just want to make sure that the goals do not exceed your comfort threshold, because once they've exceeded your comfort threshold, your level of belief falls off dramatically, and without belief, it's very difficult. Remember the old expression? Does it come from, it's either Dale Carnegie or Napoleon Hill, I can't remember now, but whatever a man can conceive and believe, he or she can achieve. So that's my answer on goals. Thank you, Brian, so much, and I hope I get to see you when I'm in Scandinavia. I am in Denmark, and I don't know if you've completed your move there yet, but I do definitely hope I get to see you. Jackie, jump in. More questions. First of all, everybody, this is the fantastic and amazing Jackie. I know we can't hear you, but give her a big round of applause anyway. She'll hear it. She will. Do you hear it?
I do. I hear it. It's deafening. I love it.
Some of you really clapped. I really appreciate that. The rest of you didn't. Come on. All right, Jackie, go ahead.
So we have some questions. The first one is from Mr. K. Mr. K wants to know if you have more than one iceberg, how do you handle them?
Wow, that is a really good question, and it is about prioritization. The first thing is that when you're evaluating an iceberg, you have to look at the potential time frames of the iceberg. So some icebergs are way out there. You've got time to prepare for them. You know, if the Titanic had known about that iceberg half an hour earlier, they wouldn't have hit it. And so if your icebergs are quite a distance out, then that's going to give you time to get strategic. And of course, the more business freedom you have, the more able you are to create the time to watch for those icebergs. So, that's the first step, is to make sure you absolutely get yourself out of the inside of your business so you can see them with as much notice as possible. So that's the first thing, is to take a look at the time priority of the icebergs. Then the next thing is to look at the threat priority of the icebergs. In other words, how significant a threat is this iceberg to me, my business, my industry, and so on. And then the third threshold is, how big an opportunity does the iceberg present? And when you look at those three things, you can evaluate two icebergs and make a decision. Obviously, if one is much sooner than the other and much more dangerous than the other and poses a much better opportunity than the other, then you know which one you want to focus your time on first.
Great. Our next question is from Ergo from Estonia, and he wants to know,
I'm going to Estonia.
Okay, perfect. You are going to Estonia, June 19th. You were a guest lecturer at the Business Mastery Seminar. So why should someone now attend the Business Freedom workshop? If they've seen you speak there.
So you've seen me speak at Business Mastery, which, by the way, right away, did you say Ergo? Ergo, first of all, I hope I get to see you in Estonia. I hope you're planning to come. What I want to say is the Business Mastery event was one of the greatest privileges of my life. I've been a big fan of Tony's for a long time. Ever since I was a young man, he had a big impact on me. And so when I got the invite to do my first Business Mastery event and support Tony's event like that, and then get to tour with him for a year, it was just a phenomenal privilege and really a great, just a real privilege of my life. Obviously, what happens in a Business Mastery environment is that there's a lot of content. For those of you who have been to that program, I mean, you're talking huge long days, and Tony's got a lot to say, and so really what I had to do is take a lot of what I teach and condense it down into very compact presentations. And one thing that I was never really able to do there is have any sort of audience participation. And the reason is that I had a very tight schedule. Tony's coming off the stage at this time, I've got to get on the stage, and then I got to get off before the next speaker, and so audience interaction was always something a little dangerous, because I could want to, somebody could ask a question, and I might want to spend 20 or 30 minutes answering, and I really wasn't able to do that. And so what I really enjoy about my own events is that because I control the clock, I'm able to get a lot more personal contact with people. So a major advantage that you'll have here is that at a Business Mastery event, we probably didn't really get much chance to connect, right? There's thousands of people there. Maybe we got to say hi, at some point, but not, at one of my events. We're going to have a lot more opportunity for more intimate interaction. So we'll be able to connect at a deeper level, and frankly, I'll have more time to get into some of this content in a more workshop way that will give you more practical examples of it. So I hope I do see you in Estonia.
Great. Next question is from Alex from Ohio. And his question is, aside from trying to exit all non-essential roles and focus on whatever adds the most value to his business, what advice do you have for parents of young children who are trying to grow a business that demand a lot of time?
Wow, Alex, that is such a great question. And frankly, when we have these, we get into these situations where there's a lot of either or in life. Like, I could work really hard on my business, or I could have a functional family. That's a decision that a lot of people end up making because they start their business and they get so caught up with the doing. So I think that one of the absolute key things that is important here is recognizing that that your business is about your life. Your life isn't about your business. Let me say that again. Your business is about your life. Your life isn't about your business. And so what that means is that you really want to get to a place where you're prioritizing things in a really great way. Some of you will have seen the system of prioritizing based on whether things are important and urgent. So for example, you could have activities that you do on a daily basis that are not urgent and not important, like Facebook. Not urgent, not important, right? And then you could have other activities which are like urgent but not necessarily important. Like the phone ringing creates a sense of urgency, but it's not necessarily important. You don't, I mean, you in your business, maybe you're not even the one that's supposed to answer the phone. It took me a long time when we first started hiring people to answer phones around the company. For me, matter of fact, I had to go have our IT department program it so my phone wouldn't ring. Because once it was ringing, I had to answer it. And so it was urgent, but then often I'm on the phone and it wasn't important. And then, of course, you can have things that are urgent and important. Man, I got to get this done. I got to get this done now, and it's important to the business. And then, of course, there's another category, which is where something is really important to the business. It's just not pressing right now. It's not urgent right now. And frankly, family falls into that category. You see, often family is not urgent until it's too late. By the time family is urgent, it's too late. And so what I mean by too late is when you hear stories about teenagers gone wild and wrecking their car around stuff, it's too late. It's too late. We haven't had enough time with them in the early days during we haven't had enough parenting time with them because we've been maybe too focused on our business or what have you. Or if your spouse is like really upset with you because they feel like you're a workaholic and you're just never there for them, it's now too late. You see what I mean is that they were not urgent, but they were important. Here's why this is so important or so significant is that if you look at your list of stuff that you have to do and you have a task that's, say, a 7 out of 10 for important, and it's also a 7 out of 10 for urgent, and then you've got your family, which is 10 out of 10 for important, but nothing urgent going on there, which task are you going to do? Right? You're going to do the urgent and important one, even though it's not as important as family, because it's got urgency, you're going to end up having to do it. And so what you really want to do is begin to construct your life and construct your business so that more and more and more of your day is spent doing things that are not urgent, but they are important. Because that way, when there's a project to do in your business that's a 7 out of 10 for important, but not urgent, and then your family is a 10 out of 10 for important, you go, I'm going to do the family this time. I'm going to make a better decision. And so that's a very, very key part of it. The other thing is, Alex, and this is so important, I want you to understand that we get addicted to our businesses and our businesses get addicted to us. We get addicted to our businesses and our businesses get addicted to us. Sometimes all we have to do is break the addiction. So what you might want to do is you might just want to say, I'm done. Like one of the things that I did in my very first company is I realized that I'd gotten to a place where I had so much urgent and important stuff that my family, it had started to get to the place where it was too late. I felt like I wasn't getting enough time with my son. And so what I ended up doing, my wife and I worked it out, that I would take an hour and a half to 2 hour lunch every day, but then I might work a little later into the evening. But the reason I took that hour and a half to 2 hour lunch every day is that during that lunch, cell phones off, there was this really great place near our business that had like a big jungle gym for kids, with the balls and the slides and the swings and lots of other kids. And they served lunch there. And so we would go there, sit and have lunch, and play with Daniel. And it was just, it changed everything. It was a really nice vibe and a really nice feeling. Here's the thing. While I was gone, my business had to run without me. Those small moments you create where your business has to run without you, that's how your business learns to run without you. So move toward less urgency in your day and simply make time for family, and your business will get used to you not being there. Alex, I hope that helps, and I look forward to connecting with you in person. I know we will someday soon. I don't know how I come to Cincinnati, but it definitely won't be in the wintertime. All right, Jackie, what's next?
Okay, the next one is from Ergo from Estonia. And he says, at the moment, I don't own my own business, so where would I start?
You don't own your own business, so where do you start? So you're an aspiring entrepreneur. Let's be really clear. This is a much longer question than I can answer on a webinar, and it's a highly personal question to you. So I want to give it some time, and then I hope that we get together in Estonia where I can spend a little more time with you on this. And the short version is, you remember what I was talking about with origin stories? So you want to balance this issue of starting a business around your core competencies and starting a business in an area that you have tremendous passion. So for example, one of my real passions in life, which I shared with you at the beginning, is sharing. I like being a catalyst in people's lives. Like I like when I sit with somebody for lunch or they come to one of my seminars or I consult with them, And I like that as a result of their interaction with me, something clicks. They see things differently. Something feels different to them. And in that moment, their life changes course. I like playing that role, especially I like, you know, one of my absolute favorite emails that I ever got, I got about 5-6 months ago. I got this email from one of our clients who had just done our Business Freedom Challenge, a 90-day video coaching program that runs you all through this stuff. And he wrote to me, having gone about two-thirds the way through the program, so he's still in it. And he wrote to me and he said, I have never felt more free in my life. That's got to be the best testimonial I've ever had. I mean, that's why I'm here. I do this because I have such a passion for doing that for people. So bearing in mind that that's my passion, it's really easy to know what I should be doing. I should be doing this, right? So when you start thinking about the kind of business you want to get involved with, you might want to take a look and say, what are your core passions in life? What kind of a legacy do you want to leave behind? That's as far as I want to take that answer for today. But when we get together in Estonia, I'll go into it more with you then. Thank you.
Okay, we've got one from Facebook that says, let me pull it up. Sorry. Your business freedom experience, is that something for already established entrepreneurs and business owners, or someone that's just starting out would benefit from it as well?
You know, it's really interesting because I'm always telling people in their marketing, you can't be all things to all people. And the challenge is that when you're running a seminar like that, you want to create a seminar that has really, or a workshop that has really tight focus for the right group of people. What I want to tell you is that as somebody who has been a living room startup, I've done the living room startup thing, and I've run fairly large companies. And so the way I constructed this program is to create the maximum benefit for everybody from I want to be an entrepreneur to I employ probably in the realm of 100 to 150 employees. I'm not saying that a person with a bigger company couldn't come and get a lot of value. It's just that the seminar is really targeted in that range. So if you are wanting to start a company to you have about 100 employees, then the Business Freedom Experience is designed exactly for that model. So I hope that answers your question.
Great. Next one kind of piggybacks on this one, and it says, what exactly will I learn at the Business Freedom Experience? What's something that I can use right away in my private life, even if I don't own a business yet?
Great. So again, there's a very long list of things. We're going to teach you how to find out who you really are. You know, at the end of the day, there are some core passions, core paths that you can follow in business, and one of them is natural to you. It's absolutely natural to you, and the problem is that for many people, the path that feels most natural to them is the path that they will give away for free. Like lots of people who have a passion for speaking and sharing and that kind of stuff. If they get a phone call, hey, would you come speak at my event? They're like, yeah, I'll be there, because they have such a passion for it. So one of the things that we're going to really work on deeply during that workshop is identifying who you are. Identifying who you really are, and then figuring out how do you build a business around that passion, around who you are, so that you're really significantly more fulfilled by your business. And also, because frankly, when you're walking on a path that's not your nature, that's when you trip and fall. That's when life gets expensive. That's when life is stressful. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also going to talk in detail about inception marketing. Like what I showed you guys today with origin stories, which I hope you enjoyed. I just love origin stories so much. That is like less than 0.1% of the overall strategic methodology of inception marketing, and we're going to go through it step by step during the Business Freedom Experience. So, and there's obviously so much more. I don't want to turn this into a big sales pitch. I'm just telling you, it is the very best of what I've learned, both in my studies of entrepreneurship and in my experience of running businesses. It will absolutely be worth your time, no question about it.
Great. And then we got Kurt. We got Kurt.
Is it Kurt?
It's Kurt.
Kurt, we've got a serious Estonian contingent here, isn't Kurt? Oh, Kurt's in Stockholm, but he is Estonian. Yeah. All right, what does Kurt have to say?
It doesn't matter. It's Kurt. And everyone on the call, as soon as you come to one of the workshops, we'll say that about you too. We love Kurt. He's got a two-part question. And the question is, one, how do you overcome fear that many people have in facing large business transactions?
Yeah.
So, and then the second part of it is, do you have a formula on how people can go from one level to another in overcoming their fears?
All right, so I think we're just about out of time. So that'll be the last question?
Yep.
And so Kurt, there's a couple of things, and again, I could go into this in a lot of detail, and I will because I'll see you soon. But for the sake of this is really important, and everybody pay attention to this because this has a lot to do with the comfort zones and beliefs that we were talking about before. When you're approaching a large deal, when you're making a large proposal, or you're trying to undertake a large transaction, you want to find a type of energy relative to that deal that is a positive charge for you, that it's motivating, that'll make you overcome obstacles and challenges. And that you don't want the energy to build to a place where you have such high attachment to the outcome that you start feeling fear. The minute you begin feeling fear that you might not win the transaction, then you'll start creating resistance, and that resistance is detectable to people. You can get into the metaphysics of how that resistance might affect the universe and all that stuff. Right now I'm talking purely, if you've got resistance about something you're trying to achieve, the people around you will detect that resistance. Your staff, your employees, your customer suppliers, or the person that you're making the proposal to. So it's really key that you find that place where you have a level of positive expectation that motivates you, but not like attachment where there's going to be a letdown if it doesn't happen. And so in a sense, it's this balance of how do I get excited about the opportunity without getting attached to it. And so one of the ways of doing that is having a great visualization about what it'll look like when the deal happens. Really see it done. Like, have a little meditation and go in there and see how it impacts your business and see how it impacts the people around you. And then have another little, very quick, not more than about 10 seconds, just a quick little meditation on, how big a deal would it be if it doesn't happen? No, we'll move on. Just let go a little. So I have a positive, I love the word expectations because it suggests that you expect it to happen. Not that you're attached to it, you just expect it to happen. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay. We'll move on to the next one. In fact, and Kurt, it's funny because I remember you were on one of our Business Freedom boardrooms. We were having this conversation where you lost, if I remember correctly, you lost this huge deal. Was that you? I think it was in your group in any event where somebody lost this huge deal. Oh, it wasn't you. It was Hugo. And he was like, he lost that huge deal. And then we were all like, yeah, well, something good will come out of this. And then very next week, he logged in and he said, he was back on the boardroom meeting. And he said, guys, as it turns out, now knowing what I know about that deal, I never wanted it. It's a good thing I lost it. And if I had won it, I wouldn't have been around. I wouldn't have had the resources to take down this deal that I just won yesterday. So when you lose a big deal like that, let go. You don't. Everything's happening according to the plan. And then part two, Jackie, real quick.
Do you have a formula, like a step-by-step formula in overcoming fears?
I have a number of step-by-step formulas. For those of you, many of you know that I run an annual leadership program where I take people up Kilimanjaro, and one of the core aspects of that program is teaching people mental toughness, a 7-stage process for managing your state of mind no matter what's going on. I want to deal with one methodology that does not come from an internal thing. There's lots of internal stuff you can do to overcome fear, some of which I already just described. Let go of your let go of the expectation, or let go of the attachment to the outcome, and the fear will fall off. One of the other things that we can do, though, is we can recognize that quite often as we're growing a business, we have our own comfort zones for the size of a business that we're willing to own. And so what we can do to kind of overcome that comfort zone sometimes is to hire or bring in partners that have comfort zones that exceed our own. And by doing so, we extend the business's comfort zones. So as an example, I have a business I have a couple of businesses in Northern California. One of them in particular, really fun and exciting business. It has really significant potential out there. And as we were taking a look at one of our projects, I realized the potential was much bigger than my own comfort zone relative to the kind of things that I've bid before. And so we brought somebody in who has handled $0 to $100 million startups to really help us run that business. So you can overcome the fear by having the right people around you that don't share that fear. And then in their confidence comes your confidence. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. I've seen the numbers, and you guys really stayed engaged and you stayed with us. If we didn't get to your question online, we'll do what we can to get to those questions. Post them on my Facebook page, or on Twitter at Eric Edmeades. And otherwise, if you're in Northern Europe or you're in Scandinavia, please come and see us live. We're going to have a ton of fun. It'll be a great investment of your time. It'll be a lot of fun, and you'll learn some great stuff, and we get to meet in person. So check out elevate.no, or also events.ericedmeades.com, events.ericedmeades.com, and we'll send an email follow-up so you have all the details. Thank you so much for tuning in, and if you've had some fun, the replay is coming up. Please feel free to share it with people. I'd love to get the word out there. It's been an absolute blast. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you all.